Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is finally out, and let me tell you, it is an amazing finale for James Gunn's trilogy. Uh, Overall, if you haven't seen the movie, I definitely recommend it. You should go check it out. And for the next little bit of that, I'm just gonna go through it and give sort of my opinion on it. It's my first movie review ever, so if you come to like my style or just me in general, hopefully I'll do more of these and we'll see where this goes. So yeah, just straight up right off the bat, there will be no spoilers in this review. I'm just gonna talk over it, some of the character arcs, and just the overall plot of the movie. I'm not gonna mention anything in specific. So yeah, if you just want to hear a review from some random kid who likes watching movies, hopefully you'll find this enjoyable. So overall, I'm just gonna give it a rating now rather than wait till the end. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. The movie did everything that it wanted to. It concluded the saga the trilogy in its own original fashion. It concluded it in its own way without, falling into basic finale traps or losing its own style that the Guardians of the Galaxy has always had. And just over comparatively to the other two movies, I'd say it's definitely better than the second one, but the first one just has its own special place just because of everything it achieved when it first came out. It was truly unique as a Marvel movie. So overall, comparatively to the other two, I'd say it was worse than the first, but better than the second. Not to say that the second was bad or anything like that. And it's a really tight race between the third one and the first one. So yeah, if you think the third is better than the first, that's a fair comparison. Overall, the plot was a little basic, I will say that. It followed the same basic trends of any superhero movie. You've got your, basic heroes argue before the final conflict, and then your big battle and all that. However, the fact is that Marvel has been dwindling for the past couple movies, and it's lost its form, right? So this back to basics for this movie, and the fact that it, even though it was doing everything that like most superheroes do, it did it in its own way, and it didn't feel repetitive or boring or formulaic, just because it was unique and because it's been so long since we've had a movie that's from the MCU that's hit these notes properly and followed the trends in the right way. So just because of everything the movie that achieved, even though the plot was it fit the basic trends, I would still say, due to its uniqueness of the characters, due to the arc that it created with each one, due to the villain and each character's own story, it still elevated that basic plot line and did something that truly felt refreshing, and it felt like old Marvel, which is a compliment, right? Because since Endgame or like Spider-Man, No Way Home, old Marvel's been kind of gone, right? We used to expect this high quality every time we go to the movies to see a Marvel film, and that's not what it's been like for the past couple films. Love and Thunder was honestly the worst MCU movie in my opinion, and Quantumania was a bit of a choppy mess. So to have this back to form from the Guardians of the Galaxy was it was refreshing. It was definitely well needed, and as long as the MCU continues this way, I think it will be able to pull itself out of the drought that it's been in for the past couple films. Last thing I want to mention about the plot before I get into kind of the characters, because I do feel like the characters and each of their individual stories was the true highlight of the movie. The last thing I want to mention about the plot, the big fight scene, you'll know it when you see it. Truly the one of, if not the best fight scenes in the entire MCU. It is shot in such a unique way compared to all the other big battles. You get to see each character's unique fighting style in this one big battle of just this one big battle. And truly, compared to some of the other big battles in the MCU, you know what's going on, right? Like, MCU battles have known to be choppy or multiple cuts in between every punch they cut, and then it's just, and you don't have any relative spacing between your characters, right? So it's hard to tell where everything's happening and what's going on. This fight scene was shot in a completely unique way. I'm not going to say anything about how it was shot, but it was shot completely differently to the basic MCU battles, and you get to see each one's unique fighting style while still having all this foreground and background, and so you can comparatively tell where each character is and how the fight is progressing through the battleground that they're in. And just watching that scene was truly captivating, and I hope that the other MCU movies learn to take from this, because I feel like it was a much better way to highlight the powers of each of these characters rather than the basic punch and cut that we've been getting from past movies. So yeah, that scene is truly a treat. Like, if you're gonna go watch the movie, just go watch it for that scene. It's remarkable. Anywho, as I mentioned, the true highlight of this movie, besides the well-arced plot, is each of the character arcs. Each character gets their own time to shine, and that's saying something considering how many characters there are in this movie. Even the minor characters like Kraglin and Cosmo, who aren't in there for much, have their own sort of mini arc or their own mini story. Sorry. That plays off quite well. So it's nice to see that James Gunn actually gave consideration and time in writing each of these characters. So I'm just going to quickly go through them, my basic thoughts on their story. I'm not going to mention anything in particular. I'm going to leave the star of the show for last, though, so I'll get there when I get there. Straight up, Peter. He was annoying at times, but it was like an understandable annoying. He's going through a lot, in all fairness. His arc is probably one of the more predictable ones. It's going to be dealing with Gamora and his relationship with her and how he learns to overcome that. So while it was predictable, it was definitely funny watching him gripe with these different emotions and this unique situation that most people never find themselves in, losing someone, but still kind of technically there. So it's definitely an interesting thing to watch. Groot, I wish we had gotten more of his backstory, how he ended up being the only tree creature, I'm not sure what their names are, it's my bad, tree creature left. I do feel it was a little underused. He does have one of the funniest scenes in the movie right at the end, and one of the most, and just a really cool fight scene somewhere in the middle there. But besides that, Groot didn't really have a whole arc, but he was still just fun to watch, good comic relief, and some pretty unique scenes. So besides Peter and Groot, I'd say the rest of the Guardians all had a much better arc. So Drax, I really like the direction that they took his character in. For all the movies he's been in, it's been very cut and dry. He's stupid as a brick, responds to everything with violence. You know exactly what you're gonna get when you see Drax. But in this movie, we saw just a completely different side to him. And that's a common trend among some of the other characters, that James Gunn decided to complete some of these arcs by showing us another side to these characters, a new perspective of them. And somehow by showing us more of them, he actually completes their arc or ties off their loose ends. So with Drax, you see a truly special side to him, and it comes out because now that Thanos is gone, his big bad that he's been pursuing since we've met him in the first movie, what's his objective now, right? So what is it that's keeping him going? And when you get to figure out what that is, when you get to see that, it shows a unique side to him, and it completes his whole motivation, why he's been doing everything. And watching that it was special that they took a character that everyone thought was like brain dead, basically, had nothing in there, and showed that there's a lot more depth to him, and that he truly is unique. And I'm glad that they played off that. Same thing could be said for Mantis. If you watch the holiday special, not gonna spoil anything in there, but She does have like some major revelations in there and some points progressing in there. Uh, but besides that, this is sort of her own coming to like power story. And what I liked about her story is that it still leaves it open for more because she is a relatively new character. She was only introduced in the second one, so she hasn't had time to sort of go through her full arc. So seeing where they take the character next with how they left it open, but still showing her progressing from the second movie and from where she was as a assistant to Ego and where she is now, you can see that progression in her character, but you can tell that she still has some way to go. And it's good to know that like we'll still be seeing some of the Guardians. Gamora, she's as I mentioned when I mentioned Peter, she's a very unique character, right? Because she's gone, but she's not really gone because this is Gamora from the past who's still sort of lurking around. Surprisingly, she was one of the funniest characters in the movie, just because her dynamic of trying to explore these relationships that she had but never had, and everyone remembers her but she doesn't remember them. It's a interesting play with how they go about her, and so yeah, just watching Gamora expand and progress in the way that she does in this movie is interesting, and I don't want to say any more just to risk spoiling it, so I'll just leave it at that. Nebula falls into the same category as Drax because once again her big gripe with the world and everything that's been torturing her from the inside out has been Thanos, right? And now that he's gone, you get to see another side to her once again. And it's truly, you can say it felt out of place just because there are a couple scenes where she does these little things that you'd never expect from her. But when you come to think of it, you really come to appreciate just how oppressed just how oppressed she's been in all the previous films and how she's been holding herself back as like emotionally or as a character in her own, in herself, because it's always just been Thanos, Thanos, Thanos. And now that that's gone, she's finally able to let go of that and explore some of her own emotions, some of her own motivations as a character. And it was fun to watch. It was definitely, like Drax, her arc actually concluded by just showing her in a different light and in a different headspace. And one of the things I really liked, it's a really tiny sort of action that she does when she learns about something. That's all I'm going to say. But when you notice that, it's not something you'd ever expect from her, but when she does it, you're like, wow, look how much she's changed from what happened in from Endgame and so on forth. So that was a nice little thing to watch her do. You'll see it when you see it. Before I get to the start of the show, I'm just going to cover two of the smaller characters, Cosmo and Kraglin. Cosmo is just a delight. I mean, she's a dog, so how couldn't she be? And she actually does, even though she's like really not in the movie for a lot, every scene she's in, she's just a pleasure to watch. She's hopping around all happy as a dog. And you do get to learn a little bit about her backstory. It's a couple throwaway lines, but you do get to learn a bit about her, and you get to see her powers, and she's crucial to the final battle. So that it's nice that even though she was a minor character, she still got her time to shine and her scenes. And with Kraglin, now that he's taken over after Yondu, he's taking the arrow and he's experimenting with that. It's nice to see how he uses it differently from Yondu. He was interesting. He was definitely just, minor comic relief. He didn't do much overall, but it was nice seeing him experiment with the arrow in a different way from how we've seen it be used previously. Rocket, I've left him for last because this movie is truly his movie. He is phenomenal, and watching everything that Rocket goes through is heart-wrenching. So much happens to this little raccoon. They tie it in such an interesting way, right? You have all these gut-wrenching moments, and you've got this comedy inserted throughout, and it's actually well paced, it's well executed. You don't feel like the comedy's misplaced and that it's hurting the plot, sort of like in Love and Thunder, where it's just forced into every line. With here, you have Rocket's story, which is just really, really sad. And you contrast it with the general positivity and just humor of the Guardians. It creates a really nice balance in the movie. And just watching him go through all his troubles and reach where he does near the end of the film and whatever happens on beyond there is it's really fun, and it truly elevates his character from just this angry little raccoon who's been shooting at things and is just smart as hell to something else, to something where like, okay, now I understand why he's been so angry. Now I understand what's been pushing him for so long. Now I understand why he has such a knack for building things, or all of that. Sorry again. And the villain is his villain, right? The villain that's been chasing them for the whole movie, High Evolutionary, it's purely he's there because Rocket is there. And so watching Rocket deal with these things from his past, overcome them, fail to them, try again, watching him just go at it again and again and again with the new tools that he has because of the Guardians is truly just unique and fun to watch. I will say I wish we had more of him and just more of what we got. Besides that, truly Rocket, every scene he was in was his scene, and so just the whole movie as a whole is his movie. Really, he's my favorite Guardian by far. With that being said, the last thing I want to talk about just quickly are the villains. So you've got your minor villain, Adam Warlock, and you've got the High Evolutionary. Adam Warlock, I will say that he did progress the plot. He did get the Guardians to where they needed to go. He did advance things in ways. However, I didn't feel like the role was truly like designed for Adam Warlock. He felt more like just a name drop for the sake of it being Adam Warlock. His role throughout the film and what he does could have just been achieved by any random henchman. It kind of felt like MODOK and Quantumania. There was no reason for it to be MODOK, right? It's not like it made sense for him to be designed in that spot. He's just there because it's MODOK, right? And they want to name drop this big villain that everyone loves so much. So Adam Warlock kind of felt like that. His role felt like, okay, it's Adam Warlock, but so what? If that makes any sense. They don't play off him as a character. They sort of just play off his actions and what he does and how that progresses the plot. And what he does can be done by anyone. It didn't have to be done by this major villain that they brought in. And so that was a bit of a shame, watching him kind of just be dumbed down to just a basic henchman. He is funny. He has his own arc. He goes through some things. It's he's well acted and well written as a character. I just felt like the role could have been more suited for him. It's sort of, it's just felt like he could have been doing more, is what I'll say. On the other hand, in contrast to that, High Evolutionary, just perfectly executed. His anger, his gripe, his pursuit of Rocket, everything that motivates him and pushes him towards doing everything that he's doing, it's different from other villains that we've seen, and just truly, genuinely just evil. He's like a villain just for the sake of villainy. He's not even... Some, you can say like they're confused or they're in the pursuit of something better. He's kind of got that in pursuit of... He thinks he's pursuing something better, but it's so blatantly obvious that it's just a cover-up for just pure hatred and evil and anger, and just that's different to see. It's nice to see because all the other villains in the MCU, or not all, I don't want to say all, but a lot of the other ones, you always feel like just a bit of sympathy or understanding for their cause. Even Thanos, like you could say, like he felt like he was doing something right? But with High Evolutionary, you feel nothing for him. Like there is no, like, I understand what he wants. This makes sense. He's in his own eyes doing something for the greater good, but in reality, he's evil. No, he's just purely 100% to the core, even though he's trying to cover it up, just crappy. And seeing that instead of like the basic, oh, I'm supposed to sympathize with the villain and they're just a troubled person. It's nice. It's unique. It's different. It's fun to see that, and just to actually be able to dislike the villain without having to feel like guilt. Oh, his parents abused him, or he thinks he's doing something good. No, you're truly allowed to just dislike him, and I feel like that's a good, unique set of emotions that this movie allows you to feel. I do wish that we got a bit of his backstory, a bit more of it, because kind of when you first see him right off the bat, he's already in power. He's already super strong, and kind of fell out of place. Like, how did he get there? I do understand why they didn't put it in, just because of everything the movie wanted to do and everything the movie had time to do. They just didn't have enough time to like show him progressing upwards. But I felt like a couple throwaway scenes here and there just to show like his powers and why he can do what he can do. Because it kind of just felt like in the final battle or in any random battles, like he could just randomly activate random abilities that he has that we had no awareness of, or why he could do any of that, just because we didn't get to see his progression or how he reached power. So I just felt like that would have been nice, but overall his character is very well executed, well written, well acted, and how he plays off with Rocket, how Rocket's story progresses against his story, right? How they progress in opposite directions, and showing Rocket tossed into this unique play set of pushing his characters to new limits. It's fascinating to watch this their contradiction to each other and how their stories are so intertwined, and yet they ended up on completely different paths. And seeing Rocket struggle with that, and seeing the High Evolutionary also struggle with that in his own way, it elevated these two characters together and how they contrast each other. So yeah, just overall, I'd say the movie is very well executed. Solid 8 out of 10, almost 9. You should definitely check it out if you haven't. And if hopefully you like this. Hopefully, I do a couple more of these and we see where all this goes. Thanks for watching, and see you around.